It's just coming up to the afternoon for those of you who are joining us. Welcome to today's session. For those of you attending for the first time, or for those who are used to it, please do share your name and where you're from with other people. This is a way that we can all see who's in the room. We're going to be using today Slido. So for those of you who are familiar with our sessions, you can go straight to the QR reader, or you can go to slido.com and put in today's code, which is LM151021. In terms of how the session will run today, we're going to use Slido right at the beginning so that we have some idea, or Neil has some idea of knowledge in the room. And then when Neil has finished his presentation, we're going to have another couple of questions on Slido, which will hopefully prompt discussion. So be prepared for 2 sessions using Slido. And of course, any questions that you would like answered, I would appreciate it if you could please use Slido to put it in the Q&A there. It is easier if we put it all in one place, and it is also available for everyone to see. And of course, if you think it's a really interesting question, you can rate it, which makes sure that question comes right up to the top of the list of questions. We'll also be using Slido at the end, and we would appreciate any feedback that you could give us as to how we could improve or learn from today. So thanks. What I'm going to do is, as people join, we can put up the poll. As people join, they can actually start to do it. So, Abraham, let's have a look at the opening survey. Very simple questions. And I repeat, if you want to do this, it would be really interesting. It is a way for Neil to understand the knowledge in the room. You will find the Slido poll of interest, I think, as to find out who else around the room knows as much or as little as you. So the first question is, have you heard of CROSS? So we'll give people a couple of minutes or so, well, 30 seconds or so. 7 people have completed the whole poll so far. So let's go to the second question. It's kind of simple. Again, it's yes and no. Have you visited the CROSS website? And lastly, the last question, have you registered for updates? So we'll just give it a minute or 2 longer. I say we got 10, so let's see what we got a reasonable percentage then. So let's have the answers then, please, Abraham. Well, there we go, 50-50, Neil. Is that about what you were expecting?
No, that's more than I expected.
Right. You thought more people wouldn't know, or more people would know. Yeah, okay, fine, that's good. Okay, so that might prompt the next one. Oh, have you visited the CROSS website? Ah, so 73%. Were you expecting that higher number?
Only half of the 11 people knew of CROSS. Only half of those people have visited the website by the look of it, which is to be expected.
Yeah. And the last one?
Similar.
Similar. Okay, well, I'm now going to hand over to Neil. And thank you, Neil, for joining us today. I'm going to let Neil explain a little bit about his background and as much as he wants you to know. And I look forward to listening, because I have to say, Neil, I was one of the people who had to answer 3 no's.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to try and share my screen now. It shouldn't be too difficult. We practiced this before, and slideshow from beginning.
Super. That's great, Neil. Thanks.
That's the one. Yep. Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Neil Gibbons. My initial career was with the Fire and Rescue Service. Since moving on from the Fire and Rescue Service,
Neil, you've gone quite quiet. I don't know whether something's changed there when you hear.
I move closer to the microphone. Is that any help, Howard?
Still quite quiet. Can you hear more, Abraham, than I am?
No, it's quite.
It's quiet, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that any better?
Yep. That's better.
Right, plugged in a microphone.
Thank you, Neil. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Yes, so my background's fire. I became Chief Executive and President of the Institution of Fire Engineers after my career in the fire service. I've done a number of consultancy type roles and advisory roles to government. Very involved with a number of working groups when Dame Judith Hackett was building up her review. About 3 years ago, I was tapped on the shoulder by Dr. Alistair Soane, who suggested that the structural engineers product CROSS, something that they devised some years ago, should have been expanded into fire. Dame Judith Hackett agreed, and now I'm fully engrossed in this project. But this is me. It always feels very one-sided doing a presentation, talking to your screen in a room rather than talking to people. But I hope that I can keep the thread going and keep your interest, because this is something that I think is really important, a very positive thing that should be responding to the awful tragedy of Grenfell and all the other problems that we've discovered since then. So CROSS, what is it? Where does it come from? And what would we like you to do with it? It's a confidential reporting process. I'd like to describe to you what can be reported and what will be the benefits, and who provides information to CROSS and who can read it. That's our logo. Initially was confidential reporting on safer structures, but since our expansion into fire and further consultation...
Sorry, Neil, your sound has dipped out again.
I've not changed anything this end, Howard.
Do you want to unplug your earphones and stuff and see whether that makes any difference?
How are we now?
No.
Your technical person assist with anything I might be able to do.
Well, it's come up again now. So have you done anything at your end?
No, got a really good internet connection.
Okay, we'll carry on. It's okay again at the moment. Thanks.
But bear with me. I am down in Devon. It's a long way for the pipe to travel. I've just seen I've got audio settings on the screen.
It's all right at the moment. It's
right.
Working fine. Don't move.
Bear with me.
Thanks.
In 1976, the structural safety profession founded the Standing Committee on Structural Safety by the two bodies that most structural engineers belong to, the Institution of Structural Engineers and the Civil Engineers, and the HSE joined into that group in 1995. CROSS was a product of that standing committee. The great and good of the structural engineering world decided that one facet that was missing from their profession was the ability to report matters of interest, matters of concern in a confidential manner. They'd come across the American system that was operating, designed by NASA, based on the ASRS, the Airline Safety Reporting System. In 2021, following support from government, following a recommendation by Dame Judith Hackett, CROSS was expanded into fire, and that relaunch was supported by what was MHCLG, now the wonderfully titled DLUC, or Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. CROSS is in existence across the world. There's more active in the UK than anywhere, with a particularly strong structural expert panel that I'll come on to explain. We've got a committee in the US and in Australasia. There are tentative steps being taken in South Africa and in other parts of Europe. I think that's quite a powerful arm of CROSS to be able to bring in information from around the world and share information around the world on fire safety and structural safety matters. We're configured in the UK with a technical board. We sit quarterly to analyse what is happening in the world, how the system's working, are we supporting it in the way that we should be, and is it delivering what we expect? We bring together our colleagues from Australasia and USA. We have 2 expert panels that also meet together, so we get a common view of the threads that are being reported and the nature of reports that are coming through. And then we have a small delivery team, which was for many years Dr. Alistair Soane on his kitchen table. But thankfully, from the support we've had from government, we're now embedded in the Institution of Structural Engineers with a team of people helping with the essential matters such as running the business and contact and engagement. The expert panels, the hub of what we do, why we're so special, I believe, is that we tap into, at the moment, around 20 people in the structural world and 6 specialists identified in the fire world. The fire panel will expand over time. It will expand when we get more fire reports and when we've bedded in the report management system that we launched in March of this year. But we have a wealth of experience, some of the great and good, particularly of the structures world, and a good cross-section to start with in the fire world. Where do we fit? CROSS isn't the only reporting system in existence. The Building Safety Bill makes reference to a voluntary occurrence reporting system that will fit into the new Building Safety Regulators remit. Also under the new BSR, we expect to see a residence reporting route, a mandatory occurrence reporting route for matters pertaining to those buildings that fall in scope to the new Act, and whistleblowing, which already exists but will likely be formalised as we move through. CROSS is significantly different to whistleblowing. CROSS is about lessons learned. It's not about litigation. It's not about blame. And we do have to be quite careful to ensure that people understand that we are something different to that. So the reporting process and how to report. It's quite a simple mechanism that was designed by NASA, but isn't that always the way that simple things work best? If one of you listening today came across an issue that you thought should be shared, an incident, an event, you could go to our website, press on the button. It warns you it might take 15 minutes, it never does, to submit a report. That report will come to one of 4 of us. If you tick the fire box, it will come to 2 of us, myself and Dr. Peter Wilkinson, who's the Technical Director for the IFE, Institution of Fire Engineers, and we will triage that report. We will work out if this is a CROSS-type report and what it is that we might learn from it. We spend some time feeding back to the reporter, and when we're sure that what we have is truthful and fits with the CROSS criteria, we work on the report to create an anonymised version. We don't accept anonymous reports, but we do remove all references to the reporter and, if appropriate, the premises, the building, the structure, or whatever, to ensure that it's only the learning that is transmitted. We pass that initial report to our expert panel. We always get significant comments back. We then review the report again, put it back through the expert panel to check that we've reflected their inputs. We pass the polished report for a legal review. And when our lawyers say this is not going to get us sued, it's decent, legal, honest and truthful, we pass it back to the reporter to ensure that the reporter's happy about how we're presenting their information. We also give a commitment that we will publish the report and let people know what has been found. That can take some weeks. In fact, it can take quite a long time, but we are very proud of what is produced at the end of that system. moving on, what does Cross receive reports about and what are we interested in? If we look at the pyramid of risk, then at the very top end, fatalities and major incidents, we expect to be investigated by the regulatory authorities. Obviously, the Grenfell Tower inquiry is turning over every step, every issue relating to that awful tragedy. And across in the US, our colleagues over there are deeply involved in the Surfside collapse in Miami. The Cross piece is from normal operations through to incidents, through to minor injuries. We're looking for information that might be precursors to other problems, or certainly opportunities to identify lessons learned that we can share through our interested community. What can be reported? We receive reports about every stage of a building's life. We have designers who come across such things as failures in software or in interpretation of standards. We can receive reports at the construction phase, often a time when the products and the way that they're used comes under scrutiny. And
Neil, we have a problem again with the sound. Someone has suggested, have you got something in a hub of USB port or anything?
No.
No, okay. Not quite sure why it's dropped out again then.
If I turn on my headphones and try an alternative means of mute.
Yeah, we can try that and see where it comes back.
How's that?
Start speaking again.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that's okay. Give those a go.
Good.
Let's see what happens. I don't know why it just falls off all of a sudden. But over to you.
Right, back to me. Just the life cycle of a building and the whole of it, including demolition, can opportunities for reports to be submitted. We need reports. It's the food that feeds the beast, and we need to convince the sectors. I've not mentioned yet the numbers, but in the first year, back in 2005, when the Structurals created Cross, they had eight reports in that first year. We're now up to well over 1,000. We're slowly engaging with the fire sector and with a wider group of people who might come across issues relating to structural matters. But all of the people popping up on this slide, everyone involved from design through to demolition. We focus on the word professionals, but that's not exclusive. We'd be very happy at anyone involved in managing a building, servicing a building, refurbishing a building, or making changes to a building to give us information that might lead to changes in the future. What are the benefits of safety reporting? Why do we do it? There was a word that ran strongly through all of Dame Judith's report, and that was about culture. And there is something different about the culture where Cross is accepted. We think that the businesses, the organisations, the entities that encourage staff, employees and people that are involved with them to use Cross in all its facets, particularly to share things that have not gone right so that we can learn from those things, and also where things are not being done appropriately, but give people the head cover to be able to say, yes, submit a report to Cross. We also need people to read and learn from Cross. I mentioned already, we want to identify shortfalls and precursors. Reading Cross reports leads to improved competence. Sharing the lessons learned, preventing people having to learn the hard way. We anticipate that the Building Safety Regulator will turn to Cross and is already talking to Cross about prioritisation, particularly from a structures perspective, about which kinds of buildings should be looked at first in the new regime. Assist with horizon scanning. Our panels come together and say, what is all this telling us? And it can help protect your reputation. From an individual's perspective, we recognise this as an opportunity for continuous learning and development, improving your knowledge of safety, keeping up to date with emerging safety issues, finding out about best practice, and keeping your colleagues and peers updated by giving them feedback about what you've read from CROSS. Where to find reports? We've got 3 key threads, key windows into the CROSS world: the website, social media, and our email. Our website, I appreciate probably 5 people out of those that are signed in today have already had a look at our website. It's very simple, very clear, designed for busy people. It gives you the nuggets, the essence of what the report is about in that first page. We always identify key learning outcomes right at the front of things, but then the report will be as long as it needs to be, sometimes running into many pages, but you will only go past the front page if you want to, but you will know from the very opening what it's about. We're feeding into social media. We're trying to keep the profile up to develop that learning community, where most of us are far too old to really embrace this. But I'm talking from the CROSS perspective, not from yourselves, obviously. But we have a content and engagement manager who has really helped us make sure that CROSS gets into places where people who are busy and working are likely to read the information and be aware of the system that they can report to and read from. But when we encourage people to visit our website, we also encourage them to sign up for our emails. We won't be battering people with piles of spam. Excuse me. We allow people, as I'll show in the next slides, to choose what it is that you receive from CROSS.
Neil, sorry to say, it's dropped off again. All of a sudden, just dropped off.
It's not connected with the headphones then, Howard, but give it a second. We're back again. No?
It's still it's quite faint. I don't quite know what's happening. That's all right. That's gone up a bit.
How's that?
Yeah, we'll try it. It's come back again now. So yep, carry on. Thanks very much.
No, apologies. What was I saying? Sign up for our emails and choose what it is that you want to receive. What sort of information do we share? What have we received already that is out there? We can publish the reports, as I've discussed the process, by receiving from third parties. We issue alerts if something comes to the attention of CROSS that we feel should be fed in very quickly, and the word alert should have got a clue in the title. Feature articles where a number of reports have come together and are worth analysing and sharing in a more deep way, as in a magazine article but published online. Theme pages, bringing together such issues such as the climate emergency, and we also publish third-party content. If there are documents, research, information relating to CROSS live issues, then we will link them from our website as well. This is a little bit more about each one. I've covered the essence, but I would encourage you to visit our website and have a look in a little bit more depth at the ones that appeal to you from a professional perspective. Alistair Sohn was called to give evidence to Dame Judith. She wanted to know what CROSS knew about external wall systems. CROSS was very much focused in that period on the structural matters, but was alert to issues happening around the world, and we will hear more from the Grenfell Tower inquiry about whether there was an opportunity for someone to say we really shouldn't be using that highly combustible cladding on such buildings. We have reports come in about major safety defects discovered in a hospital, actually identified while the external wall system was being remediated to achieve compliance by removing the cladding, found other problems underneath. Major fire in a car park in Liverpool led to a report being published by Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service, but had an impact on the structural world. The structural world would not have had an easy route to find such information without it being shared across to Cross, and we're now working very closely with the National Fire Chiefs Council to ensure that information that is circulating within the Fire and Rescue Service community is able to be shared through Cross with the wider fire community. Huge amount of issue at the moment in multi-storey composite laminate timber buildings, cross laminate timber buildings. The race to build the tallest building in the world of timber is been dressed up as a route to achieve zero carbon targets, but potentially without the science to give assurance that the extent of use of CLT in the structure might be safe or not. The report raises concerns and prompts people to do some research and talk to the world experts before testing live on tall buildings. Glazing design, we've come across a regular occurring issue with curtain walling glazing systems. Worth a read if that's part of what you're responsible for. Fire protection of mixed hot and cold rolled steel structures, and a reporter sharing what had to be done to put something right after a fault was discovered. And I could go on. There's a fire precautions one, fire stopping. Such a regular problem where a building's built to an appropriate standard and then other bodies come in, other trades and professions come in to do the last fitting, passing through compartmentation, out of sight of the occupiers of the building, out of sight of anyone responsible for checking that the building maintains its compartmentation. A particularly interesting incident, fire spread through the access balconies being formed of composite decking, plastic decking board being used as the sole means of escape to flats. Highlighted a much more complicated fire, a lot of people talking about other elements of that incident, but Cross has taken the opportunity to transmit and expand on the issue of how the decking is so important to means of escape and access for firefighters. Green walls and lack of watering, we're seeing longer dry periods. The current trend towards green walls, which look so attractive when well watered, but the watering system must be maintained. What we'd ask from yourselves and those who you're connected with is to engage with Cross, to stay up to date with Cross. It's very easy to sign up. We started this session with the Sligo QR code. We have another one with the Cross emblem in the centre. I'll leave this up, and obviously the presentation is available through Leaders Meets after we're finished, but please scan that, sign up, choose which sections of Cross you would like to receive information from for the future, but as importantly, as we're speaking to leaders today, please pass on this information to those who you think it's relevant to in your organisations. They're the choices: fire safety, structural safety, all of the world, or just your area of the world. If you want to keep up to date with emerging safety issues, if you want to use the information on our website to make structures safer, and please encourage others to get involved with it. From a fire safety perspective, we're very keen to encourage people to submit reports. There will be things happening out there that should be shared. People will know things are not being done in the way that they should be, products are not being used in the way that they were designed, corners are being cut, and things are going wrong, and perhaps just a few people who've been around that experience will know about it, but there is a route to make sure that more people know about it. Please submit a report. It is straightforward. We do maintain confidentiality, and we will treat that report with due care. There again, how to create a cross account, how to find us on Twitter, how to find us on LinkedIn. And we're at the point where we would normally ask any questions. I see there are 6 in the chat, which might be complaints about the volume dropping off. I can see my microphone's showing some green going up about halfway, so I'm assuming that that's still working okay. All done. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing.
Do still have some background noise. Not quite sure what it is, Neil. Abraham has an idea. Do you want to suggest it, Abraham?
Yeah, I think you're using your you're using the mic which is on your webcam.
Yeah.
Maybe you could switch it to the laptop mic, the default.
Yeah.
Because okay, the sound is stopped. Can you say something?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh yeah, that's good.
I
Oh wait,
didn't actually get to do anything, but
no, there's still that sound.
yeah, and I that did actually interfere with my presentation. I lost my thread in probably some of the embellishment and emolument I would have done on top of the slides, but conscious that you might be distracted by the lack of sound quality. I really am sorry for that.
It's not your problem. I think, you know, something's gone wrong down the line or whatever. So anyway, I think what we'll do is we'll put up the next couple of questions from Slido, because I think this will actually now prompt some questions. These are open questions, so I think it'd be worthwhile taking a couple of minutes on each of these 2 questions. So what barriers do you see that might stop people submitting reports? So if you could please just take a moment to fill in the answer, or what you view as the answer to that, that'd be really helpful.
Has the background noise disappeared, Howard?
It comes back a bit when you speak. I'm not quite sure what it is, so it's difficult to say, really.
Right, now move to using my headset microphone. Is that any better?
Yeah, that's got rid of the background noise completely. It had some sort of little noise on it. I don't know.
I do apologise. I've had this problem some weeks ago and cured it by using the headset, but when we did the test earlier, it was fine, wasn't it? So
Yeah, what was happening, it just dropped out, I'm afraid.
Right.
You were talking, then all of a sudden it just went, for some reason or other, to a much lower volume.
it probably
So-
fell asleep. I have that effect on things.
I don't think it's anything to do with you. I think it's one of the foundations of technology that you can never get to the bottom of. So the second question is there anything more we can do to engage with people? We've got a suggestion here from Alan Carr. If there are 2 mics on at the same time, that might be a problem. Headset and PC or laptop. So what he's saying is, have you got 2 on that include maybe 2 of your items or even 3?
That was a possibility while I was presenting, but now I've gone just to the headset to listen and to speak, microphone and speaker. If that's sorted it, then this is how I'll continue from here.
To be honest, it's crystal clear at the moment, so I don't think we'll worry about that.
Great. So I believe we've got
We've 4 people have participated in
Yeah.
these questions. So Fred, I went and put mine in the wrong section here. So I'm very happy to say that I put that in Q&A. So Abraham, if you want to take them out of Q&A, I'll move them over. I mean, let's get the answers. So let's put the answers up. Let's see what other people think. So those are the answers. I put time in on mine. I did actually also put afraid of being a whistleblower. People may actually worry about doing that. So these are the barriers that people see. So Neil, what sort of comment would you like to make about these? Confidential agreements signed by persons involved in sensitive incidents. In other words, could end up with legal action. I think that's what people are putting.
Yep. And I know that over the years, reports have been received by people who have been wrapped up in legal agreements, but their conscience told them that what they had seen, what they had experienced, needed to be shared. Now, Cross will not get involved where there's litigation in process. But if information is supplied to us in a way that is completely detached from the problem that might result in litigation, there's usually a way of putting across the learning and separating it from the legal system. I recognise ignorance of Cross. I had no idea about Cross until Alistair Soane tapped me on the shoulder, and that's why I'm so grateful for opportunities like this to speak to people who are likely to transmit on that this exists, and hopefully, as we establish a reputation, people will trust us. They'll understand the confidentiality is rock solid. Time. Everyone's too busy, aren't they? And yep. But which way is that? Is that time to report or time to read? We have put a great deal of effort into ensuring that our reports are made very clear who it's applicable to and what the essence of the learning is. To do a job properly, to learn if it's your profession, if it's relevant to your profession, you would spend appropriate time absorbing whatever is in the full report. But we try our best not to waste your time by leading you into reports that are not pertinent to your field. Not sure how PI insurance impacts on this. You're not in contract with Cross. If anyone would like to expand on that, if they have the ability through this system, but all Cross reports that are published are checked to ensure that Cross is not likely to come into legal difficulties. And yet that follows into the last point about blame, responsibility and litigation. That was the essence of why the American Airlines Safety Reporting System was created. Pilots were seeing things frequently that could have led to disasters, but they were afraid of the backlash. They wouldn't have been employed, and they needed somewhere to go where the safety issue would be taken seriously, understood, and processed and fed into the system. This is a no-blame system. We never name the perpetrators. We might cause difficulties for companies who are not complying with labeling, for instance, but we wouldn't be pointing at that company in particular, but it might be clear that that is the kind of thing that people are reporting about.
Before we move on to the second one, how many people submit reports a year to you? How many reports do you actually get? How many, and then how many of those do you actually action? In other words, do you sift out ones that you can't be involved in? So let's take the first one. How many sort of people will submit to you on a yearly basis?
So it's grown over time from a structures perspective, from 8 in the first year to around about 120 last year.
Do you see the new building safety bill increasing that amount?
The fact that there will be a mandatory reporting process, that although it will apply to a relatively small number of buildings, around 12,000 of the in-scope buildings, just the introduction of a system that prompts people to share safety information is likely to have an effect to cause greater interest in all reporting systems. I'm anticipating. We can't be certain about that, but what we know is that the information that's been shared with the Grenfell Tower inquiry suggests that there are many opportunities for improvements in the culture of how we design, build, manage, refurbish and firefight in our buildings. And we see that further reports to CROSS helping feed the knowledge base, helping point people in a direction that is positive rather than the race to the bottom that is been daily worked out in the inquiry, should be a step, an indicator of a more positive culture.
Do you think that you're going to get more people reporting cladding, or do you think that that's now all being done? Or
it's happening now. Further concerns about different types of materials from people who understand the problem and from people who don't understand the problem. You asked, do we get reports that don't progress? Yes, generally reports that come to us from members of the public where it's a complaint effectively about someone else, that's not generally CROSS's business. That's not about lessons to be learned from events or occurrences. That's just problems, and we will help people and point them to the appropriate regulator or point them to how to get legal assistance if they've got an issue that's going to go down that route. But cladding isn't yet finished. In fact, the nature of design, with our building regulations being goal-based, you can build your house out of chocolate if you want to, if you think if that's what you want, but that's obviously going to have some flaws. But people have been testing the edges, driven by cost, and we expect to see, as we found after Grenfell with the number of buildings that were affected by the failure to abide by the appropriate standards, we're going to find other things, I'm sure of it.
Okay, thanks. Let's move on to the second question now, please. Is there anything more we can do to engage with people? Must spread the word about CROSS. So do you want to go through those, Neil, as you can see them?
Yeah, we hope that as the new regulator and the building safety bill passes through Parliament, that because there is the reference in there to voluntary occurrence reporting, we will be clearly pushing that is CROSS and helping explain to people, just as I've done in this presentation. I've spent countless hours over the last 18 months speaking to organisations, particularly the overarching bodies in fire, the Fire Industry Association, the Local Authority Building Control, the National Fire Chiefs Council, making sure that the big bodies at the top know about it, but that needs to cascade through to people on the ground. Students is a very good point. I'll take a note of that. There are only 6 degree courses in fire engineering running at the moment, but there are many associated with the built environment. And I think I saw at the start of this that CABE, CIOB and various other professional bodies who are very grateful from my perspective, taking articles from CROSS and publishing them on, having articles about what is CROSS and what does CROSS do published in their journals and through their social media sites. Thanks for thinking about us. We are active on LinkedIn. I smile most mornings when I check my LinkedIn stream and see that Charlotte, our content and engagement manager, has picked up something and turned it into the right format for pushing out through LinkedIn, something that you can look at and dismiss in a nanosecond, or dig into it if you think it's relevant to your interest or profession. And very happy to give more seminars like this. I think I can compress the essence of what I need to get across into about 30, 35 minutes. And I think that's probably about as long as people would ever want to listen to my voice.
Thank you, Neil. We have 2 questions that have come in. We have now posted the feedback survey. So if people would like to give us feedback on today, they can do that. We will keep it open for a few minutes after today's session, so don't feel you have to fill it in whilst listening to Neil. So we have a question here from Richard. Construction only changes to meet regulatory updates. How can CROSS encourage people to change, for example, with inherent fire stopping issues?
One of the examples I flicked through was a report about fire stopping, and we've only had 14 fire-related reports since March, and a third of them have been related to fire stopping issues. It's one of those unseen areas. CROSS cannot solve the problem, but it can highlight the problem, and it can highlight the extent of the problem and highlight the consequences of the problem. A lot of people involved in the overall framework will never see the effect of a fire door that works or a fire door that doesn't work, or fire spreading through an unseen cavity above the false ceiling that should have been protecting people's means of escape. We can, because of our expert panel feeds and because of the way we present reports, turn complex matters into simple to understand reports. In this instance, in fire stopping, most buildings, I think, are completed to standard. It's what happens afterwards, and it's then influencing those trades and managers, people who bring in the tradespeople to fit retrofitting, pipework, cabling, CCTV, etc., to talk to those people about the importance and where fire stopping lines are drawn. So CROSS plays a part in the education of it, but its biggest role is in highlighting that it is still an issue and the size of that issue.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. We've got an anonymous question now. Great way to collect lessons learned, but how do you ensure people use the lessons learned? And should there be a legal requirement to do so?
So the mandatory reporting scheme that will come in under the Building Safety Bill will require certain events to be reported to the regulator by the responsible person. The mirror to that in general terms would be RIDDOR, the reporting of dangerous occurrences. How much do we measure the impact of that? It's very, very hard to say. It's a bit like education, isn't it? It's something that you know is right, but you can't easily measure the impact on an individual level. I see CROSS as just being part of a jigsaw, linking together, hopefully, small pieces of information that might add up to something specific. We look at ourselves, those that have been in the fire sector for more than the last 10 years, to think, was there any opportunity that someone could have looked at a building, looked at the stuff that they were fitting to a building and thought, we really shouldn't be using this stuff on these tall buildings, but who do we tell? Well, with CROSS being expanded, and when CROSS is established and accepted and trusted, and we've got to earn that trust from a fire perspective, it's done for structures, then I hope that we can make the difference. It'll not be earth-shattering, but it's relatively cheap. There are only a few of us. The expert panels are volunteers giving their time, and there's Alistair, myself, and another working almost full time to get through the business. And we're taking more time at the moment because we're having to establish our credentials and talk to more people to let them know that it exists. But it's not the answer to everything, but it's part of the solution, I hope.
You said, just interestingly, you were part of a jigsaw. Do you see as a big piece of the jigsaw, an equal piece, or a smaller piece of the jigsaw?
I like to think of it as a piece of the jigsaw that sits very close to the centre, that can act as a knowledge hub for information, where anyone involved in the safety systems in buildings can report, and that coming into this central safe hub can then be transmitted out to the right people. Our general process is as I've described, where we would receive from an individual a matter of concern, a report that an event took place that could have led to something else, and that gets published as a report, and it's pretty generic. But if we receive something that's specific, we know who to talk to. We are connected because of the expert panel and because of our relationship with the developing regulator, with the government departments, with the enforcing bodies. The construction products regulator, the Office for Product Safety and Standards, was created as a result of a report that I chaired. We are embedded into the community, and I think that is what is needed. But to achieve its full power, to achieve everything that it could do, it needs a shift in culture. It needs people thinking differently about safety. It needs them to see something go wrong and think, oh my God, that was a near miss, or wow, that could have been much worse. We need to tell somebody about this. This could happen somewhere else.
Okay, so thanks for that. I've now had a little bit more from one of the anonymous people who asked the question. The question is, are designers legally obliged to review the CROSS website? So if an issue could have been avoided, and had they reviewed it, are they liable?
Well, I don't see anybody ever being legally required to do just that, to read the CROSS website and keep themselves up to date. The way that we're going with the standards for competence for the duty holder roles, it will be more generic. But the power of CROSS is in that when information is published, it's out there. When it's been through the expert panels that include representatives from the regulators, the standard setters, that itself becomes a standard. And ignoring that standard puts you at peril of the test of reasonableness and due diligence. So I don't know if we're familiar with industry standards, industry created standards, but that's what a way of interpreting a CROSS report could be at its most. If it's out there that you need to consider this before doing X, and CROSS has published it, it would be used in court against you if you're not kept up to date.
So the architect, designer, whatever, is responsible for keeping themselves updated. They don't get anything automatic unless they register with you, or do they not get anything automatic even if they register with you?
They register with us and ask for the email updates, and then they would, but it wouldn't be. You couldn't just decide to receive emails relevant to lessons learned for designers. It would require some filtering, and I would have to say that we can't always assume that we get it right in pointing the information to the right people. Designers could have their influence over the whole thread. It's good that there's discussion about competence and maintaining competence. We've worked closely with RIBA. I was a member of the competence steering group that's been looking at 13 threads of work to raise standards, ended up publishing the report, Raising the Bar. We know that in an architect's 7-year development period, less than a day is generally spent on fire safety in design. And RIBA have spoke at length to the Institution of Fire Engineers and the fire sector to identify what it is that designers should know, how can we improve their core learning at the base, and how can we ensure they get the appropriate CPD as they move through. But there's discussion regarding the beefing up of the regulation of registered architects, and that part of that will be adherence to an ongoing CPD programme, of which Cross may be part, and I think should be part.
Okay, thanks very much. I don't know whether we have any more questions. I'm just going to check. I don't think we do. So I think we've probably answered everyone's questions. So I think what we'll begin to do is to wind down on today, given we've got about 4 minutes before 1 o'clock. For those of you who've got a moment or two, please do take time to complete the feedback. It's always interesting for us to learn and see what we can improve. And I do apologize for the sound difficulties we had, but I don't think it actually dissuaded, because Neil, you very kindly stopped and went back over things. I know you say you lost a bit of flow, but I think the message came over really very clear. If you'd like to receive a certificate at CPD certificate, please do go to mypropass.co.uk, create your free account, and then if you quote today's event, you will get a CPD certificate. Maybe quite an interesting one for a number of people to get. So please, Abraham, can you put up next week if you would like to join us for next week's session? We're looking at pre-manufactured value validation. We're going to be joined next week with Simon Cross from Cast Consultancy. So please do register for that. I'm now going to thank Neil again, and I can't see any more questions. So Neil, we're off now to enjoy the weekend. So many thanks indeed, and thank you for everyone for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you next week. What I'd say is have a great weekend and enjoy it indeed. Many thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.